Every once in a while, a job comes along that's so complex, it takes innovation and ingenuity to a whole new level. For Omega Morgan, this job would bring new meaning to the company's mantra of doing the impossible daily. One of the world's largest logistics companies contacted Omega Morgan to transport 2 cold boxes, 2 heat exchangers, and a warm pipe skid from the Port of Longview, Washington, to a customer's site in Hillsboro, Oregon. With 6 months to plan, the team had just enough time to pull together permits and logistics for the complex route. The first cold box measured 138 feet long, 17 feet wide, 15 feet tall, and weighed 180 tons. The second cold box measured 144 feet long, 17 feet wide, 15 feet tall, and weighed 208 tons. The first challenge came in obtaining a permit to get the cold boxes over the Lewis and Clark Bridge. Outdated state records indicated the truss heights were too low to accommodate the load. But by measuring every truss on the mile-long bridge by hand, the Omega Morgan team was able to confirm clearance and convince the state to give them the needed permit. After 6 months of meticulous planning across departments, the team began building and configuring trailers for the loads. The cold boxes would need a custom configuration to protect the roads and the cargo. With 12 hydraulic dollies and 6 custom-built rockers, the team was able to accommodate the manufacturer's required support points on the pieces, achieve bridge legal weights in the state of Oregon and Washington, and hold the loads low enough to meet height restrictions along the route. Then, just 3 days before the crossing, the entire plan was turned on its head.
So up until yesterday, we had a plan. We were going to take 2 cold boxes and 2 heat exchangers over the Lewis and Clark Bridge into Oregon. Yesterday, we found out that there's a problem with the Lewis and Clark Bridge and our permit got denied.
As the loads arrived at the Port of Longview, the state inspected the bridge and discovered structural issues that forced them to restrict loads from crossing until the bridge could be repaired. The 6-month plan now needed to be reinvented and ready to execute in just 3 days. With phone calls, emails, and hours of coordination, the planning team scrambled to develop an alternative plan to accommodate the weight and safely transport the load across the river. Instead of the bridge, they would utilize a barge. Meanwhile, the crew had to completely disassemble the trailers and dollies that were ready to receive the pieces via direct discharge at the port.
So now all the equipment you see in this yard is getting tore back down, moved across the river to another yard. Things change at the last minute. You have to adapt and overcome.
With an all-star team working around the clock, the barge plan became a reality, and the loads made it across the river on schedule. On the Oregon side of the river, the boxes were placed in a staging area where they would be configured for travel across Highway 30. At the same time, the Omega Morgan project management team coordinated with 11 utility companies for the remainder of the haul.
So thanks you guys all for coming tonight. Our load is going to be 19.5 tall is what we're running at. No matter what anybody says on the radio, the thing doesn't move unless Abel says it's all clear, and Abel will make sure that he has radio communication with Troy. Anybody can say stop, right? If you guys need us to hold up or something, you have radio with you as well. So this is one of 5 loads that we've taken out of here. A lot of work involved, a lot of players involved. We got ODOT out here, we have Comcast out here, we have local PUDs out here. Everybody working together to get the thing from here to Highway 30 and ready for the next step of the load.
Slow and steady, the convoy of utilities and crew began the all-night trek down Highway 30.
All right. Nice and easy, Troy.
After Highway 30, the loads would be taking up Cornelius Pass, the only hazmat route connecting 2 major interstates. With a daily traffic count averaging 28,000 vehicles, getting permission for full closure of the narrow and winding stretch for 3 nights was no small ordeal. Months of planning were needed to pull off this leg of the haul. Utilities needed to scout and budget for lifting and moving. A week and a half of tree trimming needed to be organized. The public had to be notified ahead of time. And the traffic control plan needed to be developed to cover various intersections and many arterial roads. But it wasn't just the permitting and traffic control during the move that made Corn Pass a formidable hurdle. The pass was a steep and winding canyon, impossible to safely traverse with the dollies that made the prior leg of the trip possible. The cold box loads would need to be transloaded to another configuration, which meant closing down a lane of State Highway 30 for an entire day to transload. To plan for safely navigating Corn Pass, Omega Morgan hired a drone company to fly and photograph along the sharpest S-turn and used photogrammetry software to produce a 3D map. The 150-degree turn with an incline of 7% boasted a cross-slope super elevation of 10 degrees, 5 times that of an average road. For the S-turn, self-propelled modular trailers would provide much-needed suspension, maintain road-legal axle weights, and provide critical support points for the loads while turning. The front trailer would be a double-wide trailer to provide extra stability for the tall load, while the back trailer would be standard width. Still, more suspension was needed to ensure the loads would not tip over or become damaged by twisting around the S-curve. Success would hinge on innovation. Project engineer Kai Farrar developed a custom-built turntable system with Goldhofer turntables mounted on top of the line trailers. On top of the turntables, custom fabricated bunks fit the critical support points that were wider than the turntable top plates. Cylinders with skid shoes on the bottom were incorporated into the bunks to provide a hydraulic-powered tilt system, while a secondary slide surface rested around the outside of the turntable on the deck of the line trailer. By Kai's meticulous calculations, this custom-built turntable would provide the additional suspension needed to safely cross the pass without danger or damage to the cold boxes or crew. Now, the night's move would put Kai's design to the ultimate test.
I can't risk you guys out there. It's dark. Make sure you guys got your PPE on. Make sure you got spotters when you guys are up messing with wires, right? Just really pay attention tonight. Like I said, it's a black hole in that canyon. There's a ton of obstacles in the way. We've spent weeks clearing overhead wires and lines, coordinated with several different utility companies to do so. Now it's just a matter of actually making it happen. At 10 o'clock, they're gonna shut down Cornelius Pass, okay? I want everybody to take their time and go down that road and make sure that everything's above 22 feet. If it's not, we're gonna take it down. Let's go do what we do, guys.
While utility companies lifted lines, the load climbed the dark and winding canyon. But the canyon's greatest hurdle still remained, the tightest and steepest S-turns. As the load approached the first of the steepest points, the crew stopped and used the custom-built turntable system to rock the load into a safe center of gravity. So far, everything was moving smoothly. The cold boxes made it through the tightest and steepest turns, and the first real-world run proved Kai's turntable design. This technical leg of the journey ended at the junction of Cornelius Pass and Skyline Boulevard, where the only parking space had inches to spare. The next leg of the trip would be one of the most logistically challenging, with between 45 and 50 people working together each night within a rigid time frame. Roads could not close until 10 p.m., and loads needed to be delivered on site by 5 a.m., period. There were no parking spaces along this leg of the route, and no room for error. The crew would need to both build and tear down a bridge jumper and execute a U-turn across the eastbound and westbound lanes of Highway 26. Every person working on the simultaneous operations needed to complete their tasks efficiently and safely to meet the critically tight deadlines.
All right, guys, same but different tonight. Last night went extremely well. The big thing is we're moving slow, a lot of overheads, safety of all you guys, the general public, the crew is first and foremost.
When 10 o'clock hit, the plan sprung to life. The cold box crew started rolling down the hill towards the bridge jumper crew. Meanwhile, with the precision of clockwork, 10 truckloads of equipment began setup to build a bridge jumper consisting of 400,000 pounds of temporary bridge material. Prior to the move, OM crews meticulously planned a layout that would account for trailers and support equipment on both sides of the bridge in a way that would not trap any equipment between the load and the bridge.
So right now on Cornelius Pass Road, we've got a bridge that can't take the axle weight of the larger trailer coming through it. So we've got 3 layers, we've got wedge mats, steel ramps, and bridge jumping girders. It basically distributes half the weight onto the roadway and half the weight onto the bridge.
The bridge jumper crew only had 2 hours to build the crossing to keep the load on schedule for the highway closure later that night. Meanwhile, other crews closed half of the lanes of Highway 26, took down guardrails, and built a road across the median. Just in time, the jumper was ready. While the load continued on and the bridge jumper was deconstructed, traffic control completely shut down Highway 26 with a rolling slowdown for 4 miles in each direction. Finally, the team faced the last technical hurdle, the U-turn across Highway 26. From the highway, each of these loads made their way to the final destination without incident. Every crew played a critical role in timing and clearing the way for bringing each load to site before the 5 a.m. deadline.
This was the toughest project that I have done since I've been here. This was 5 months of a lot of preparation with some big hurdles and changes along the way. Last minute changes with the state and making this barge across the river. Thanks for everybody involved that actually worked. Had another issue with jumping the bridges. We knew we'd have to jump with the bigger loads. We did not think we were going to have to jump with the smaller loads. We just barely failed bridge weight, so we had to build the bridge jumper system 3 times instead of 2. The permitting process to get a crossing across US 26 to build a temporary crossover, that took 2 months to pull off. And here we are, we finally made it with the last piece. It all came together, but it was a grueling process along the way.